Hello, Tributes, and welcome back to my second Discord Hunger Games from my original server. I'd yet again like to thank Christian Blanco and Lauren for writing TalkG and PR respectively. Without those series, I wouldn't be writing my own Hunger Games stuff today. I'd also like to thank Andrew McLean for making a lot of the art used in this video. I'd also like to let y'all know that in the description of this video will be a link to my new Discord Hunger Games server, yet again, just like last time. The reapings for the first Discord Hunger Games on this new server have begun, and we have 18 remaining spots. 18 spots remaining. But we're officially going to start the Discord Hunger Games, the first Discord Hunger Games on that new server, when we get down to 10 remaining spots. So be sure to join that because we'll be starting after 8 more of those remaining spots have been taken up. So be sure that you're ready for that. But also, if you guys want to, during the first week, I will still let those 10 remaining spots be claimed. So if you aren't there before the 10 tributes remaining portion, you can always just claim one of the 10 remaining tributes and then do all the stuff for that. But anyways, I'd appreciate it if you guys checked out the server and gave the first Discord Hunger Games on the new server a try. Also, if you guys want me to make a video about the changes and creative liberties I've taken with the Bookkennen districts, I will. Just let me know in a comment or a message on social media, which my tags for my socials will also be in the description if I remember to do that. As always, good luck, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Before the games. After some of the most uneventful reapings of the outer districts in all of the years of the Hunger Games, President Batches changed a rule so that there will be more people to reap from. He changed the minimum and maximum ages you could be reaped at. The new minimum age was 6, and the new maximum was 20. After the announcement was made about this change, screams were heard all throughout Panem, but no one could do anything about it. District 13. After a rebellion in District 13 caused by the return of the Hunger Games, the capital severed all ties of their treaty with District 13, and now District 13 is forced to compete in the Hunger Games. Now that the new Hunger Games has a victor, the victor would perform the reapings in each district. When Dryadine made it to District 13 with her child in her arms, she looked around at all the poor kids that would probably die in the arena. Dryadine was visibly saddened by all these young kids. Dryadine walked over to the female reaping bowl and picked out a name. Sophia Barnes, age 19. Dryadine didn't have the energy or happiness levels to yell out the names like capital citizens or career victors would have. When Sophia heard her name, she felt her body tense up with fear. Although she was in the higher age range, she was still terrified. In the first Discord Hunger Games, Sophia watched and rooted for Benji. But when Benji was killed by the D1 boy, she lost all hope of ever winning Hunger Games, if she were to ever compete in one. Sophia slowly walked up onto the stage and shook hands with Dryadine with tears running down her face. After that reaping, Dryadine walked over to the male reaping bowl and picked out a name. Uranus Coin, aged. She stopped and let a single tear fall down her face before finishing. Age 7. When Uranus heard his name, he screamed and started crying. Why was this happening to him? He thought. I've been a good boy, a good son, a good brother, a good uncle. Why? Uranus slowly walked down the aisle and up onto the stage with so much tears running down his face, no one could tell what was dispensing more water, the rain outside or his tear ducts. When Uranus got onto the stage, he reached up to shake Dryden's hand, and Dryden met him halfway, crouching down next to him and shaking his hand. After these reapings, Sophia and Uranus were announced this year's tributes for District 13. District 12. After the emotional reaping of District 13, Dryden didn't want to perform any more reapings, but she was forced onto the train by peacekeepers who put a gun to her head and threatened her with death if she didn't continue to perform the reapings. When Dryden arrived in District 12, she was hoping that this reaping won't be an emotional one like District 13's. Dryden slowly walked over to the female reaping bull and looking at the poor people in the enclosures. She felt so bad for them. When Dryden got to the female reaping bull, she picked out a name. Primrose Everdeen, age 14. Dryden said, trying not to let her emotions get in the way of the reaping. When Primrose heard her name, she screamed. She was expecting the worst, but she wasn't ready to go into the arena and possibly die. She slowly walked down the aisle, her light green eyes darting around, hoping for a volunteer. When she got to the bottom of the staircase up to the stage, that's when she realized that there would be no volunteer. She walked up onto the stage and shook hands with Dryden. Dryden then proceeded to hug Primrose and tell her that everything would be all right. No one knows what possessed her to do this, but it was obvious that this made Primrose feel better. Dryden then walked over to the male reaping bull and picked out a name. Peter Malark Jr., age 10. When Peter heard his name, both he and Primrose screamed. It was later revealed that this pair were cousins. Peter didn't leave his spot until he was forced out of it by peacekeepers. Peter was forced up to the stage, and then was forced to shake hands with Dryden. After these reapings, Primrose and Peter were announced this year's tributes for District 12. District 11. When Dryden arrived in this district, she was visibly distressed, and many citizens of this district caught on to the fact that Dryden was being forced to do something she didn't want to do. Even the mayor of the district offered her refuge away from the peacekeepers who were escorting her around now. Dryden walked up onto the reaping stage and looked around at all the youths in a way that made the peacekeepers kind of suspicious. Dryden then nodded, and all the youths within the enclosures started to attack the peacekeepers outside of the enclosures. Dryden had started a full-scale rebellion within the district without the peacekeepers knowing about it. Dryden tried to run away from the stage with the mayor of District 11, but they were both blocked by peacekeepers and shot to death. After Dryden's death, a peacekeeper then snuck into Dryden's cabin within the train and took Dryden's baby. It was later revealed that the peacekeeper was trying to save Dryden's baby because the peacekeepers made a deal with Dryden where if they had to dispose of her, they would also dispose of the baby as well. The peacekeeper proceeded to hand the baby off to a young mother named Juliet Santos within District 11. Juliet was related to the victor of the 600th Hunger Games, way back in the time before the Hunger Games were cancelled. I promised to take good care of him, Jonathan, Juliet said to the peacekeeper. Good, the peacekeeper replied to her. Then the peacekeeper left Juliet's house. After the chaotic rebellion in District 11's town center, Jonathan the Peacekeeper went onto the stage to continue the reapings. He walked over to the female reaping bull and picked out a name. Autumn Summers, age. He stopped and looked at the peacekeepers who were staring him down and sighed deeply. Age 9. When Autumn heard her name, she immediately burst into tears. She didn't want she didn't want to go into the arena, but now she had to. She slowly walked on she slowly walked to the stage and shook hands with the big frightening peacekeeper. She then turned to the crowd and gave them a terrified look. Jonathan then walked over to the male reaping bull and picked out a name. Pine Stevens, age 18. When Pine heard his name, he put on a menacing scowl and walked to the stage and refused to shake hands with the peacekeeper. After this reaping, Autumn and Pine were announced this year's tributes for District 11. District 10. After District 11's reaping, President Batches took over the reapings again. Batches looked around at all the possible tributes for District 10 and was glad to see a lot of strong people with big frames. Maybe this was this district's year. Batches walked over to the female reaping bull and picked out a name. Vivian Palais, age 18. When Vivian walked out into the aisle, Batches was very pleased about the girl's big frame and strong appearance. Vivian walked down the aisle with a menacing scowl on her face as she looked around at all the young kids inside the enclosures. Last year she was happy that she wasn't reaped, but now she had to compete in the games. When she got onto the stage, she refused to shake Batches' hand and just stood to his right. Batches just scowled at Vivian and walked over to the male reaping bull and picked out a name. Santiago Paranova, age 20. When Santiago's name was called, all traces of Vivian's confidence went away and was replaced with utter fear. When Santiago stepped out into the aisle, Batches smiled at his huge frame. Santiago was one of the strongest people in the district, and it showed. He walked up onto the stage and shook hands with Batches, with a look of pure confidence on his face. After these reapings, Vivian and Santiago were announced this year's tributes for District 10. District 9. When Batches finally arrived at District 9, he was pretty excited for this reaping, as the male tribute got pretty far in last year's games. Batches walked over to the female reaping bull and picked out a name. Amaranth Skillane, age 18. When Amaranth heard her name get called, she let a single tear fall down her bruised-up cheek. She walked slowly down the aisle, even when she was forced to walk faster. Eventually, Amaranth winced in pain as a peacekeeper put the barrel of his gun against Amaranth's cheek. As this happened, she finally walked faster and got to the stage. Amaranth then shook hands with Batches. Batches then went over to the male reaping bull and picked out a name. Wolf Jones, age 17. When Wolf came out into the aisle, Batches smiled at his big frame. He looked as though he was one of the strongest males that could have been reaped. As Wolf walked down the aisle, most of the girls between the ages of 16 and 18 swooned over him. Amaranth was even liking what she was seeing. Wolf walked onto the stage, and as he passed Amaranth, he kissed her hand, and then went over to Batches to shake his hand. After these reapings, Amaranth and Wolf were announced this year's tributes for District 9. District 8. When Batches arrived in this district, he wasn't particularly excited for this reaping, as the District 8 tributes last year didn't do particularly well. Batches walked over to the female reaping bowl and picked out a name. Nyla Cambrinet, age 19. When Nyla heard her name, she burst into tears. Nyla didn't want to go. She didn't want to die. Just as she got out into the aisle, she heard something from the mail enclosure. A volunteer's tribute. The camera zoomed in on a relatively strong young man who looked to be about the same age as Nyla. The young man then ran out into the aisle and over to Nyla and kissed her. It was obvious what they were at this point after that kiss. Nyla and the young man were dating. "What's your name, young man?" Batches asked the boy. "I'm Flannel. Flannel Montgomery," Flannel said while holding hands with Nyla and walking her to the stage. "How old are you?" Batches asked Flannel. 19, Flannel said as he and Nyla finally got to the stage and walked onto it. After these reapings, Nyla and Flannel were announced to be this year's tributes for District 8. District 7. When Batches arrived in this district, he was not excited at all for this reaping, as the victor from this district caused the rebellion in District 11. Peacekeepers with whips instead of guns stood around the enclosures. Batches walked over to the female reaping bowl and glared at every single one of the people in the enclosures and picked out a name. Sequoia Sato, age 18. When Sequoia stepped out into the aisle, Batches couldn't help but smile at her big frame. Meanwhile, the capital citizens were thinking there better not be another District 7 victor. When Sequoia got onto the stage, she politely shook hands with Batches. Batches then walked over to the male reaping bowl and picked out a name. Benjamin Oakley, age 19. When Benjamin walked out into the aisle, Batches smiled at his huge frame. He was one of the strongest boys in the district. He walked slowly at first, but then a peacekeeper whipped him. He felt the pain course through his entire body, and he finally walked faster and got onto the stage. He refused to shake Batches' hand at first, but eventually a peacekeeper whipped him until he shook hands with Batches. After these reapings, Sequoia and Benjamin were announced this year's tributes for District 7. District 6. When Batches arrived in this district, he wasn't excited for the reaping, but he wasn't bored either. The D6 male did do decently well last year, but did turn on his district partner as well, with the help of Charlie, and then he died by committing suicide after killing Charlie. Batches walked over to the female reaping bowl and picked out a name. Carolina Chambers, age 16. When Carolina heard her name, she screamed, which turned into crying. She couldn't move. She was frozen with fear until all the fear culminated and she fainted. Peacekeepers had to carry Carolina onto the stage and lay her there. Batches then sighed deeply and walked over to the male reaping bowl and picked out a name. Indiana Gaunt, age 17. When Indiana heard his name, he tried not to have the same reaction as Carolina. He got halfway down the aisle, and that's when he finally fainted. After these reapings, Carolina and Indiana were announced this year's tributes for District 6. District 5. When Batches arrived in this district, he was slightly excited for the reaping because of how well the boy from this district did, making it to the top 6. Batches walked slowly over to the female reaping bowl, scowling at the girls within the enclosure, and picked out a name. Libra Monroe, age 15. When Libra heard her name, she almost fainted. She felt like she couldn't breathe. Libra stepped out into the aisle and started walking to the stage. When she was about halfway to the stage, she fainted and had to be carried to the stage. After the reaping of a tiny, weak little boy named Eddie Solar, Libra and Eddie were announced this year's tributes for District 5. District 4. When Batches arrived in this district, he was super excited for the reaping, as this district was a career district, and the boy from this district did extremely well last year, making it to the top 3. Batches walked over to the female reaping bowl and smirked. Before he could reach his hand in, he heard something from the back of the enclosure. "I volunteer as tribute." After hearing that, Batches saw a tall young woman step out into the aisle and walk to the stage. "What's your name, young woman?" Batches asked the young woman. I'm Piranatena Skeline, and I'm 20. Batches smirked at the young woman, and then he heard another volunteer from the male enclosure. "Wow, I didn't even get a chance to walk over to the male reaping bowl," he said with a little laugh. "What's your name, young man?" Batches asked the young man. "I'm Niall Anter. I'm 20. After Niall said this, Batches smiled at the two of them and announced Piranatena and Niall as this year's tributes for District 4. District 3. When Batches arrived in this district, he felt a wave of sadness overtake him for some odd reason. Some people say that ghosts can manipulate a person's feelings, so those people believed that the ghosts of Charlie and Barbara were making Batches feel this way. When Batches got onto the stage, he immediately walked over to the female reaping bowl and picked out a name. Olivia Tech, age 8. He didn't yell out the name because of the wave of sadness he had been feeling since he entered the district. When a tiny little girl came out into the aisle, it only got worse. When Olivia got onto the stage, Batches kneeled down in front of her and said, "I wish you the best of luck." No one in the capital knew why he was doing this. Some thought he actually felt bad for her, but others thought he was just telling her this so that Olivia would have false hope. After the reaping of 6-year-old Techno Blade, Batches announced Olivia and Techno as this year's tributes for District 3. District 2. After last year's games and both of the tributes dying to tributes from outer districts in the training, people all over Panem, even District 2 citizens themselves, were questioning their presence within the Career Alliance. This year, only 6 girls and 1 boy volunteered. The one boy, a boy by the name of Lycus Agnello, age 17, was automatically decided to be the D2 male tribute, as he was the only one who volunteered. As for the girls, 2 stuck out, a 19-year-old girl named Gloriana and a 20-year-old girl named Juliet. When it was down to just these 2, Gloriana bashed Juliet's head against a rock several times until Juliet actually went unconscious, and then Gloriana took her bracelets off. After the volunteer games, all of Gloriana's victims were taken to a hospital within the district, and they were all pronounced dead. After these reapings, Gloriana and Lycus were announced this year's tributes for District 2. District 1. When Batches arrived at this district, he was beyond excited for the reaping, as the boy from this district made it to the top 3, with the boy from 4 and the girl from 7. For the talent show, a whopping 17 boys and 20 girls volunteered. Out of the 20 girls, there was one that stood out above all else. Versace Mortello, age 19. Versace shot a bow and arrow at tiny targets, hitting the bullseye every time. Versace then won 90% of the votes. As for the boys, one boy stood out amongst all else. Dracus Superiori, age 16. Dracus threw swords at tiny moving targets. Dracus missed the first one, but then proceeded to hit the rest with perfect accuracy. Dracus then proceeded to blindfold himself and put an apple above a peacekeeper's head and grabbed a bow and arrow. He stood back and aimed the bow where he thought the apple was. Dracus then shot the bow and arrow. Luckily for Dracus, the arrow lodged firmly into the apple and shot straight through it into the wall behind the peacekeeper. After this, Dracus won 70% of the votes. After these reapings, Versace and Dracus were announced this year's tributes for District 1. Training. In the training center, Uranus sat in a corner and cried. Eventually, Autumn from 11, Olivia and Techno, both from 3, came up to him. Olivia is the first to talk. Olivia waves at Uranus. "Hello," Olivia said excitedly. "I'm Olivia. What's your name?" Olivia said to Uranus. Uranus didn't want to talk much, but soon the others brought him out of his shell. "I'm Uranus," Uranus finally said to Olivia. "Nice to meet you," Olivia said excitedly. Uranus looked over at the careers. "Let's go see if we can join them," Olivia said to Uranus. "Sure," Uranus said to Olivia, and they then walked over to the careers. When they got over there, they tugged on Dracus' shirt, and he turned to where the kids were with a knife in hand. "Who's there?" He looks down and sees the kids, and puts the knife down, kneeling beside them. "What's up, kiddos?" Dracus asked the kids. "We were wondering if we could join your alliance," Olivia said to Dracus. The rest of the careers had to hold back laughter, but Lycus then kneels in front of the kids with Dracus, neither of them laughing. "Listen, kids, you're too young," Lycus said to the kids. "Y'all don't look particularly strong," Dracus added. "So, you know what we're gonna do?" Lycus asked the kids, and they shook their heads. "We can't take you into the Alliance," Lycus said, "but we sure can protect you in the bloodbath," Dracus added. "That's right. But that's as far as our assistance goes," Lycus said. "After the bloodbath, we won't be there to protect you," Dracus said. "So we're gonna help you build up your skills in fighting as much as possible before the games," Lycus finally said, and the kids nodded their heads in understanding. "Let's go to the knife-throwing station first," Dracus said, and Lycus and the kids agreed as they started walking to the knife station. Meanwhile, the tributes from 8 were hanging out in the survival station with Carolina and Indiana, both from 6. This group talked about what was going on with the tributes around them, especially how Lycus and Dracus were helping the kids get better at knife throwing. This group also saw Niall and Versace laughing at the kids when they missed the target and pretending to be scared whenever they hit the target. "This looks familiar," Carolina says to the group. "Isn't that behavior what led to Maximus's death last year?" Flannel asks. "I think so, yeah," Indiana replies. They then look over to the electrical station and saw Techno in there. "That poor kid," Nyla says. "How could President Batches do this?" "I have no idea," Carolina replied. So, As they were looking at the electrical station, Techno was trying to disarm a bomb he had created. With one wrong move, the bomb exploded. Everyone in the stations next to the electric station screamed. Even the couriers were freaked out. "Holy shit!" Carolina screamed. Indiana, Flannel, and Nyla covered their mouths in surprise and disgust. "What the hell just happened?" Lycus asked, slightly freaked out the, that the 6-year-old Techno was nowhere to be seen. "I think Techno just blew himself up," Dracus replied. Dracus and Lycus looked down at Olivia and Uranus. "What happened?" Olivia asked. "Why we stop?" Uranus asked. "What was that sound?" Olivia asked. "Calm down, kiddos," Dracus said to them. "It was nothing," Lycus said to the kids, and they continued to teach the kids how to throw knives. Interviews. Up first was Sophia Barnes. She came out onto the stage in a beautiful olive green dress. She shook hands with the interviewer, Agnes Lee, and sat down in one of the chairs. "Hello there, Sophia. So glad to have you here," Agnes said. "Thank you, Agnes. It's good to be here," Sophia replies. "So, Sophia," Agnes looked Sophia up and down. Agnes was only a year younger than Sophia, being one of the youngest interviewers at 18 years old. "You got a special someone at home?" Agnes asked Sophia. "Sadly, no. There aren't a lot of lesbians in District 13. The ones I know are already taken," Sophia replies. Agnes smirks slightly at Sophia. "Maybe if you win, we could go out sometime," Agnes says to Sophia's surprise. Sophia then looks Agnes up and down. "Hell yeah," Sophia finally says. There wasn't a lot of interesting conversation after that, and Sophia kissed Agnes's hand before graciously walking off the stage. Up next was Uranus Coin. Agnes knelt down in front of him as he ran out onto the stage and waved at everyone with a massive smile. "Aw, you're just adorable, aren't you?" Agnes said to Uranus, and he just smiled and nodded. "Why don't you go over there and take a seat?" Agnes says, pointing over to the seats. "Of course," Uranus says before running over to the seats and sitting down. "Wow, someone had a little too much sugar?" Agnes says to Uranus, says as Uranus giggles and nods. Agnes smiles and takes a seat next to Uranus. "So, Uranus, what's your strategy for the games?" Agnes asks Uranus. "Well, I have an alliance with Olivia and Autumn," Uranus says with a smile. "And the Career Alliance is gonna protect us." "Ooh, the Career Alliance is gonna protect you?" Agnes asks Uranus, surprised that the careers would do this. Uranus nods. "Yep, only in the bloodbath, though." "Who's your favorite member of the Career Alliance, Uranus?" Agnes asks Uranus. "I personally like Lycus," Uranus says. "Oh, Lycus?" Agnes says. "Yep, although Duacus is super close second," Uranus replies. "Aw, you're so adorable. I'm glad you became friends with Dracus and Lycus. Do you know any of the other careers?" Agnes asks Uranus. Uranus then shakes his head. "Although I did hear the others laughing at me and Olivia," Uranus said to Agnes. "Aw, I'm sorry to hear that," Agnes replied. After this, there wasn't much more interesting conversation during the interview, and then Uranus's interview was done. When Uranus's interview was done, He ran off the stage, waving goodbye to all the citizens. Up next was Primrose Everdeen. Primrose came onto the stage in a skin-tight black dress with massive smirks on her face as she winked at the crowd. "Damn, girl, looking good," Agnes says to Primrose, and as Primrose takes a seat. "Thank you," Primrose says, smiling. "So, Primrose, how do you plan on winning?" Agnes asks Primrose. "I have no idea for now. I think I'm gonna stick with the careers," Primrose replied. "Were you invited into the alliance?" Agnes asked, genuinely curious. "Yep. After they saw my skills with a bow and arrow, they invited me," Primrose replies. "Good job, Primrose. Not a lot of D12 tributes get invited into the Career Alliance," Agnes says to Primrose. "I'm aware. I was surprised when they invited me too," Primrose said to Agnes. After this, there wasn't a lot of interesting conversation. When Primrose walked off the stage, she winked at the crowd again before getting off the stage. Avoxes in the backstage area later accounted that Primrose and Sophia got into a fight, and Primrose actually managed to win, saying, "Save your anger for the arena, because then I'll actually be allowed to kill you," with a wink. Up next was Peeta Mellark Jr. Peeta walked up onto the stage in an amazing-looking black suit and waved at the crowd. Agnes smiled and knelt down in front of Peeta and shook his hand. "Hello there, Peeta. I like the suit." "Thank you. I like it too," he said excitedly while sitting down. "So, Peeta, how do you plan on winning these games?" Agnes asked him. "I have no idea. I don't really have a strategy," Peeta says. "Well, I wish you luck in your endeavors," Agnes replies. "Thanks," Peeta replied. Not a lot of interesting conversation happened after this, and Peeta was escorted off the stage. Up next was Autumn Summers. Autumn came out onto the stage in a beautiful floral-colored dress. Agnes knelt down in front of Autumn and shook her hand. "I love that dress. Where'd you get it?" Agnes says to Autumn. "My stylist made it for me," Autumn replied. "Well, I'll have to get her to make me one for next year," Agnes says, and Autumn giggles. "I bet you'd look amazing in it," Autumn says with a smile. "You're too sweet," Agnes says as Autumn finally takes a seat. "So, Autumn, how do you plan on winning?" Agnes asks Autumn. "I'm gonna stick with Olivia and Ioannis," Autumn replies. "Aw, that's sweet. I wish you and them the best of luck. Who knows, maybe y'all will make it further than expected," Agnes says. After this, there wasn't a lot of interesting conversation, and Autumn was escorted off the stage. Up next was Pine Stevens. When Pine came onto the stage, he was met with rapturous applause. "Hello there, Pine," Agnes said in excitement as Pine took a seat and shook her hand. "Howdy, Agnes," he says with his slight country accent. "So, do you have a special someone at home?" Agnes asked Pine. The capital citizens there weren't aware of if she was asking for their benefit or hers. Pine stayed silent for a few seconds. I actually do have a girlfriend. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I just want to be able to return home because she's pregnant. I want to be able to be there for our baby, you know?" Pine replies. Agnes sniffles and wipes away a tear. "I get what you're trying to say." Meanwhile, the crowd was screaming and crying over what Pine had said. "So, Pine," Any idea how you're gonna win and return home to your girlfriend? Agnes asked. I'm gonna stick with the careers, Pine replied. Another Outer District tribute in the Career Alliance, Agnes asks. Yes, I was surprised too, Pine replied. After this, there was not a lot of interesting conversation, and Pine was escorted off the stage to the tune of rapturous applause. Up next was Vivian Palais. She walked onto the stage in a gorgeous flowing red dress. Agnes's jaw dropped to the floor as Vivian walked onto the stage. Wow, Vivian, you look amazing, Agnes said. Same to you, Vivian replied, and Agnes blushed, causing Sophia in the backstage area to get into a jealous rage. She flipped tables and broke glasses. So, Vivian, is there a special someone at home? Agnes asked with a wink. Yes, actually, there is. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me. We actually have a son back at home. Our son is 3, Vivian replies. Agnes smirks. Maybe if you win, we could change that, Agnes says with a wink and a smirk. Vivian then scowls at Agnes and leaves the stage early. Up next was Santiago Paranova. Santiago went up onto the stage and shook Agnes's hand before taking a seat. It's nice to have. Agnes was cut off. I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. When were you flirting with my district partner when she said that she had a boyfriend? Santiago asked, and Agnes just looked at him and said, because she's super fucking attractive. Duh. Santiago glares at Agnes before he too left the stage early, not giving Agnes any chances to ask him questions. Up next was Amaranth Scalane. Amaranth slowly walked up onto the stage in a gorgeous white dress. OMG, I love the dress, Amaranth, Agnes said. Don't get any ideas. I have a girlfriend waiting for me back at home, Amaranth said to Agnes before shaking her hand and taking a seat. So, Amaranth, how do you plan on winning the games this year? Agnes said. Well, I plan on staying with my district partner. Maybe try to meet up with the Sixes, Amaranth replied. Maybe? Did you even talk to the Sixes in the training center? Agnes asked, and Amaranth shook her head. No, I didn't. Well, good luck, Amaranth, Agnes said. After this, there were no more interesting questions asked, and Amaranth was escorted off the stage. Up next was Wolf Jones. Wolf came out onto the stage in a simple black suit. Looking good, Wolf, Agnes said to Wolf as a friendly compliment. Thanks, Agnes. I'm looking good and feeling good too, Wolf replied. Wow, and he's so modest too, Agnes said jokingly. Oh, if only I knew you wanted me to be modest, then I would have said more, Wolf replied jokingly, and this actually made a little bit of the crowd chuckle. Anyways, Wolf, what's your strategy to win this year's games? Agnes asked Wolf. Well, I'm gonna stick with the Sixes, Wolf replied. I talked to them a little on the side, Wolf added. Very interesting idea. I must say, Wolf, why did you decide to ally with the Sixes? Agnes asked Wolf. Well, the Sixes are actually pretty good this year, Wolf replied. Well, I wish you the best of luck. After that, there were no more interesting questions asked, and Wolf was escorted off the stage. Up next was Nyla Cabernet. Nyla came out on the stage in a gorgeous purple dress. You look amazing, Nyla, Agnes said to Nyla. Don't get any funny ideas. My boyfriend is backstage. Nyla says and points to the doorway. She just came through where Flannel was standing with his arms crossed. Well, if one of y'all wins and the other loses, one of y'all is gonna have to move on, Agnes says with a smirk. Nyla glares at Agnes. I'd never get over my boyfriend with the likes of you, slut. Agnes and Nyla both Agnes and Nyla both get up from their chairs, and Agnes tackles Nyla to the floor. Santiago from 10, Wolf from 9, Flannel from 8, Sequoia from 7, Benjamin from 7, Carolina from 6, and Indiana from 6 all run out onto the stage to pull Agnes and Nyla apart. After this fight, both the girls' dresses were torn. Bitch, you ripped up my dress, Agnes yells at Nyla. Fuck you, Nyla yells back as she was removed from the stage by Santiago and Wolf. Up next was Flannel Montgomery. Flannel just took a seat in one of the chairs, and Agnes glared at him. Your district partner is such a bitch. How do you or the Sixes ever like being around her? Agnes asked. Because neither of the Sixes tried to flirt with her on the first day, Flannel replied, trying not to get mad. She's lucky she's cute, or else I wouldn't have gone so easy on her, Agnes said. Easy? You call that easy? You tore up her dress and almost choked her to death, Flannel replied. Yeah, the operative word there being almost, Agnes replied, and Flannel glared at her. You're the worst kind of person, Agnes, Flannel said before calmly removing himself from the stage. Up next was Sequoia Soto. Sequoia walked onto the stage with a glare of pure hatred on her face. Before Agnes could ask a single question, Sequoia ran at her and stabbed her in the throat. However, she didn't stop there. After the initial entrance of the knife into Agnes's throat, Sequoia kept forcing the knife through her throat until it came out the other side. Sequoia then slashed the knife, tearing open Agnes's throat, killing her almost instantly. After Agnes's death, broadcasted on live TV, peacekeepers finally got to the situation and knocked out Sequoia. After this, the interviews ended early as there was no one to conduct them, and instead the tributes were all escorted to their accommodation rooms and went to go get some sleep before the next day, where they would go into the arena. The alliances consist of the Career Alliance, which consists of Versace Mortello from 1, Dracus Superiori from 1, Gloriana from 2, Lycus Agnello from 2, Piranha Tenna Scalane from 4, Niall Anter from 4, Libra Monroe from 5, Pine Stevens from 11, Primrose Everdeen from 12. The Anti-Career Alliance consists of Carolina Chambers from 6, Indiana Gaunt from 6, Sequoia Soto from 7, Benjamin Oakley from 7, Nyla Cabranet from 8, Flannel Montgomery from 8, Wolf Jones from 9, and Santiago Paranova from 10. The Little Kid Alliance, with protection from the Careers and the Bloodbath, consists of Olivia Tech from 3, Autumn Summers from 11, and Uranus Coin from 13. And the solo tributes are Eddie Solar from 5, Amaranth Scalane from 9, Vivian Palais from 10, Peter Malark Jr. from 12, and Sophia Barnes from 13. Bloodbath. When the podiums rose into the arena, the tributes looked around at the beautiful landscape surrounding them. As Uranus looked around, he thought that this place was beautiful. Meanwhile, Lycus and Dracus look over at the kids they promised to protect and gave the three of them a reassuring smile. As soon as the gong sounded, the Careers ran into the cornucopia with Olivia from 3, Eddie from 5, Carolina and Indiana from 6, Sequoia and Benjamin from 7, Nyla and Flannel from 8, Wolf from 9, Santiago from 10, Autumn from 11, and Sophia and Uranus from 13. Uranus and Niall both ran for knives. Uranus politely asked Niall for the knife, but instead of giving Uranus the knife, he stabbed Uranus in the face with the knife. No! Lycus and Dracus yelled. The pair of couriers ran at Niall and readied their weapons. Oh my god. A huge fight was caused as Lycus swung his sword at Niall, but Niall ducked and ran away from the cornucopia. After this, Lycus and Dracus grabbed Olivia and Autumn and ran away from the cornucopia with them. After the bloodbath, 5 cannons went off to show how many people died in the bloodbath. Day 1. After the bloodbath, Carolina, Indiana, Sequoia, Benjamin, Nyla, Flannel, Wolf, and Santiago looked around to find a safe place to camp. They eventually found their way to a tower and climbed to the top. Poor Uranus, Nyla said. Yeah, he thought careers would protect him. I'm gonna end them, Flannel replied. That's what we made this alliance for, Carolina said. Yeah, I'm glad y'all invited us, Sequoia said. We're glad y'all accepted our alliance invitation, Indiana replied, and Sequoia, Benjamin, and Santiago nodded. During the bloodbath, Vivian ran through the fantasy landscape in front of her. She comes across a tree and climbs up it. She stayed up there until she saw the couriers leaving the cornucopia and entered the castle, and Vivian used this opportunity to actually loot in the cornucopia. She grabbed a knife that had been dropped by Sophia after she was brutally murdered by Niall as he was running away from Lycus and Dracus. Vivian also took a bottle of water and a backpack before running back over to the tree she was in and climbing back into it. Meanwhile, Dracus, Lycus, Olivia, and Autumn looked for Niall. After hours of searching, the group decided to take a break and climbed to the top of the tower that was across the castle from the Anti-Careers. Night 1. The Horn of Plenty plays, and the portraits of Eddie from 5, Primrose from 12, Peta Jr. from 12, Sophia from 13, and Uranus from 13 were shown in the sky. Lycus and Dracus got mad when the picture of Uranus was shown. How dare he, Dracus said. We told him that we were protecting y'all, Lycus added. It's okay, Olivia said sadly. Yeah, Autumn reluctantly agreed. Soon the group looks over to the tower across the way from them and sees the Anti-Careers. Let's go see if they want to help us, Olivia says to the group, and they all agree. Meanwhile, the Anti-Careers hang around in their own tower until Autumn and Olivia pop out from around the corner. The Anti-Careers jump, and Santiago even grabs his sword. Weren't you being protected by the Careers? Aren't you on their side? Santiago asked the little girls. Santiago, calm down, Nyla yelled. They're just little kids, Flannel added. Santiago then sighed and lowered his weapon and put it away only to see Lycus and Dracus come from around the corner. The entire Anti-Career Alliance pulls out their weapons and points them at Lycus and Dracus. Get out of here, Indiana yells. You filthy careers, Carolina added. Calm down, guys. We're not with the Careers anymore, Lycus says, putting his hands in the air in surrender. Once a career, always a career, Sequoia said. Want to help us kill Niall? Autumn asked the group. The group looks at each other before agreeing. We'll do it, but I got my eyes on you, Lycus and Dracus, Benjamin says, and Lycus and Dracus nod in understanding. The now bigger group starts looking for Niall. Meanwhile, Niall is all alone in another one of the castle's 4 towers. Niall sits alone in the dark thinking about his girlfriend until a baseball bat comes out of the darkness and hits Niall hard, knocking him out. When Niall regains again, when Niall regains consciousness, he is surrounded by the anti-careers, along with their new members. "Found ya," Santiago said. "What do y'all want? I'll give you anything," Niall yelled. "You can't bring back Uranus," Lycus said. "You can't regain on trust," Autumn added. "Grab the bat," Nyla said to Sequoia. Sequoia nods and grabs the bat and walks over to Niall. "I call first hit," Olivia said to everyone's surprise. Sequoia hands the bat over to Olivia, and she swings it at Niall's kneecaps. She then hands the bat to Autumn, and Autumn hits Niall in the head really hard. Then she gives the bat to Lycus. Lycus thinks really hard about where he wants to hit Niall with the bat before deciding to hit him right in the nuts with it. Lycus smirked and handed the bat over to Dracus. "Here you go, birthday boy. Hit your pinata," Lycus said to Dracus. "Here's to 17, Dracus yells before smashing Niall's skull in with the bat, killing him. Meanwhile, with the careers, Libra and Pine make a plan to run away from the careers together. "What gave you the idea to run away?" Pine asks. "Well, in terms of alliances, there's only 3 of them. Maybe 2, and solos aren't much better. Last I checked, there were only 2 solo tributes. This alliance is gonna turn on itself in no time, and I don't think you want to be there when it does," Libra replies. "Alright, well, we're both on watch right now. We could just leave," Pine asks. Pine says. "That's a good point," Libra replies. "Well, let's go," Pine whispers to Libra, and Libra nods as they both start to leave the careers behind. Day 2. Nyla and Flannel notice Benjamin and Santiago looking at Lycus, Dracus, Olivia, and Autumn very suspiciously. Nyla and Flannel approach the smaller group. "Guys," Nyla started. "Yes," Lycus replied. "I think y'all should leave," Nyla started. "See Benjamin and Santiago over there?" Flannel added. Lycus nods. "They're trying to kill you," Nyla said, and Flannel agreed. "We're gonna help you get away," Nyla said. Lycus nodded in understanding. "Just follow us," Flannel said, and the others agreed and start to follow Flannel and Nyla. Before they could get out of the camp, they get caught by Benjamin. "Where do you think you're going?" Benjamin asks. "Run!" Nyla and Flannel yell to Lycus, Dracus, Olivia, and Autumn, and they quickly obliged and ran away. Meanwhile, a fight starts between Nyla, Flannel, Santiago, and Benjamin, as Indiana, Carolina, and Sequoia run away with Lycus, Dracus, Olivia, and Autumn. Benjamin and Santiago easily overpower and kill Nyla and Flannel. Nyla and Flannel died right by each other's side, hand in hand. Lycus, Dracus, Olivia, Autumn, Sequoia, Indiana, and Carolina run deep into the castle. They run through its twisty hallways, and eventually they get lost. "Where are we?" Indiana asked. "It's like we're walking around in circles here," Carolina said. "I hope Wolf is alright," Sequoia said. "Oh, I completely forgot about that guy," Lycus said. The group then used 2 cannons. These were shown to be Wolf and Benjamin, after Benjamin and Santiago found Wolf and killed him, and then Santiago turned on Benjamin, killing him. Night 2. After the two cannons went off, there was an announcement. Congratulations, tributes, for making it to the top 15. Now there will be a feast this year as Capital Citizen's favorite tribute last year had died there, and I received a lot of complaints. After that, President Batches signed off and the games were to continue. After the announcement, there were 4 cannons. These cannons were shown to be Versace Martello from 1, Piranatena Scalane from 4, Amaranth Scalane from 9, and Vivian Palais from 10. Versace and Piranatena died due to Gloriana turning on the two of them, so she didn't have to share her food with more people. Amaranth died due to injuries sustained in the previous day, and Vivian jumped out of the tree that she had been hiding in the whole time. Meanwhile, Lycus and Dracus talk with Carolina, Indiana, and Sequoia. So guys, how are we gonna find a way out of here? Dracus asked. I still think that me, Indiana, and Carolina looking ahead would be the best idea, Sequoia says. Well, you won't have us to protect you if you do that, Lycus replied. What makes you think I need your protection? Sequoia asks. Fine, go, Lycus replied. Fine, I will, Sequoia replied. Fine, Dracus said. Fine, Sequoia said, finally leaving the area with Carolina and Indiana. Soon after they left, 3 cannons were heard. These cannons did indeed belong to Carolina, Indiana, and Sequoia, after Santiago from 10 found them and killed them. Lycus and Dracus returned to the kids as if nothing happened, and the group talked about their lives in their respective districts. Lycus and Dracus, of course, had more luxurious lives compared to Olivia and Autumn. After a few hours of talking, they heard someone approaching them in the darkness. It was Santiago. Santiago took out his knife and stabbed Autumn right in the chest, and Autumn fell to the ground. Olivia then took out one of her knives and actually managed to hit Santiago in the arm. I did it! Olivia celebrated. Oh shit! Lycus yelled. Turn around, Dracus added, but it was too late. Santiago stabbed Olivia through the back and didn't stop forcing the knife through her until it came out the other end, killing her. Rage then filled the hearts of Lycus and Dracus, and they both started to fight Santiago. To everyone's surprise, Santiago actually held his own very well against them, but eventually Lycus and Dracus' anger helped them to overpower and kill Santiago. Day 3. In the morning, Lycus and Dracus finally found their way out to the outside world. When they left the maze of halls inside the castle, an announcement was made. Attention, tributes! You've made it to the top 5. Good job! Now, I have a surprise for everyone at the cornucopia. President Batches then ended the announcement. Lycus and Dracus immediately knew that the announcement was bullshit and that there wasn't actually a surprise there, but they knew they should go to the cornucopia for the final showdown. The duo goes to the cornucopia. Meanwhile, Gloriana waits at the cornucopia for unsuspecting tributes to wander into the cornucopia area. Eventually, Libra and Pine walk out into the cornucopia area. Gloriana wasn't too happy that these were the tributes who were dumb enough to fall for this obvious trap, but she was glad that someone did. Gloriana ran at Libra and Pine and stabbed Libra through her heart, but she had problems pulling the sword out. Pine took this opportunity to stab Gloriana in the head, killing her. Then Lycus and Dracus ran out into the cornucopia area. Pine rips his sword out of Gloriana's skull and readies his sword to fight Lycus and Dracus. Lycus and Dracus do the same. Pine knew that he wouldn't be able to take on the two boys on his own, so he slit his own throat with the blade he held in his hand. Lycus and Dracus then looked at each other. Dracus puts his hands up in surrender. "Kill me, you deserve the victory," Dracus said. "No, it's your birthday. You should survive to celebrate it with your family," Lycus said. "Just do it," Dracus said. Dracus yelled. "No," Lycus yelled. "Fine, I'll make it easier on you," Dracus said, and Dracus said to Lycus and stepped closer to the edge. "Dracus, no!" Lycus said as he ran at Dracus, but it was too late. Dracus jumped over the edge and hits the ground, and his cannon sounds. "Congratulations to the victor of the second Hunger Games, Lycus Agnello, age 17, from District 2. President Batches announced as a hovercraft comes to pick up Lycus. After the games, Lycus returned home where he would become the most well-known peacekeeper in the district. He is known for being a nice peacekeeper as opposed to all the other peacekeepers. After the second Hunger Games, a deadly disease attacked Panem, kinda like what happened in 2020 to the real world, and Panem decided to temporarily stop the Hunger Games. After the disease was handled by the new medical district, District 15, Districts -2, -1, 0, 14, and 15 were brought into Panem, forcing them to compete in the games when they started back up. The capital also decided to start competing in the games as well to make things a little more fair.